Hi, it's Tim Clark, the End Times Matrix News on June 4th, 2 days before D-Day. And we're coming up, today we're going to be discussing the Big Bang, Cern, Transhumanism, and Telluric Waves. We have Anthony Patch, Heidi, and Kris are with us today. And we're just going to go ahead and just welcome everybody. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Howdy. And we'll just jump right to Kris, and you go ahead and take over with the presentation, and we'll just chime in as needed.
All right. Everybody can highlight my box there, so we can see the presentation. Today we're going to be discussing CERN and the connections with the world and bringing in the Antichrist and how that ties to H+, which is a transhumanism, and changing into your own God and being connected to the supercomputer. So we have a lot of things tied to that. We have ancient history to show ancient history and how they did these things back then. And then so we're going to tie in a lot of these things with the cosmic egg and because this is what CERN is wanting to do. They want to recreate the Big Bang. So we're going to show kind of the Big Bang and what they want to recreate. How does it tie into DNA? How is it in predictive programming? And so we got a lot of stuff to show today. So bear with us here. We're so happy we have Anthony back with us today. He's going to help talk to us about the ley lines and the telluric waves and gravity versus electricity. So it's going to be really interesting. So today I'm going to start out with a verse, Genesis 1:6. Then God said, "Let there be space between the waters to separate the waters of the heavens from the waters of the earth." We're going to be discussing this because of the Golden Age and the giant electrical Berkland current stretched between Earth and Saturn, a ladder or mountain. This is connected to the Big Bang and kind of what they're trying to do right now. And it all has to do with DNA and the computer. We've showed this picture before, but I'm going to elaborate on this today. I've done a lot of research on it. And it is tied to the totem poles. Here we see like Horus at the top, the winged egg or the winged disc at the totem poles. And you'll see totem poles and obelisk all over the world, and that's what it represents. And these currents, and they represent the stacking of the planets, which they're like kind of like a family, you know, in the universe. The universe is all of time and space, and we know Saturn represents time and space. It does. And that's the symbolism for it in Freemasonry. The word universe derives from the old French word universe, which is in turn derived from the Latin word universum. CERN is recreating the Big Bang. The Big Bang theory is the prevailing cosmological model that describes the development of the universe. Here's kind of what it might look like when they get to one of their powerful collisions. It might open up a parallel universe because that's what they want to do. Scientists believe the universe came into existence from the cosmic egg after the Big Bang. The cosmic egg is a very big piece to this puzzle. The cosmic egg's dimension being just a point. So here's the cosmic egg, which represents the universe, and the universe is a mirror of the earth. And this is a Hindu word for the universal or egg. It's a mirror of the earth, which is the egg. It's called Hiranyagarbha. Here's kind of a picture of the egg with the light. And here's the one of the points in it. The egg of Heliopolis is a sun temple, which is the Saturn sun. Saturn was called Helios back then, and that's what they worshipped. And the egg was called the Typhon egg, which we know is Set and Satan. Hermes was worshipped there as well as Typhon at the same time. And Hermes is the one who supposedly is the one who laid the egg in the center of the universe. The Kneph it refers to a motif, variously a winged egg, a globe surrounded by one or more serpents, or a munum, the form of a serpent called Kemetef. Some got tongue twisted there. Sources tried to synchronize this motif with the deity Khnum with Serapis and Pluto. And this has to do with a transition with, how do you say it, Tim? Ptolemy?
Which one is it?
It's the last Egyptian kings.
The Ptolemies.
Ptolemies.
Divided up Alexander the Great's kingdoms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they ended up calling Pluto Serapis, because he's the same thing, and with Khnum, which represents Jupiter. This is the oracle of the Illuminati. It's a lion-faced serpent, which represents Serapis and Mithra. It represents Neph, the father of Ptah, and another way of spelling it, I don't even want to try to pronounce that. But interestingly enough, there's a lot of connections with this egg, from all the way back from the very beginning of the Ogdoad, which Thoth represents with Typhon in Hermolopolis and Heliopolis, which they were worshipped in, which is the 4 frogs and the 4 snakes that merged with the Ennead. In Sanskrit, Brahmanda it means cosmos and egg. So it means cosmic egg. Cosmic egg, the Orph egg in Greek tradition, is the cosmic egg that hatched the primordial hermaphroditic deities, Phanes. And so I did a blog on this, Mithra, false Christ son, and Phanes is in representative of Mithra, and it represents the Gemini twins, which were actually 4 deities, 2 males and 2 females, Apollo and Hermes. So this is just connected to that too. During different times, it's been dragged all along. So just put it this way: this has been dragged all the way from Egypt all the way to the Vatican today.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Gaga too.
Oh yeah.
And Bruce Jenner.
Yeah. Right.
And I just wanted to touch on this for a second. This is a map of CERN, and I didn't get Mount Meru in here, but it's very important because that is like the point of the Earth where the electromagnetic currents, telluric currents, was most powerful back then. And we have connected that to Egypt, and then beyond that, because Janus represents Janus and Jana, the sun and the moon, the 6 and the 9. 6 and 9, when you put them together, they make the 8. It represents Cancer, the crab, which ate the phallus of Osiris, and also when you add 9 and 6 together, it makes 15, 555.
Yeah, I didn't really think of the yin-yang symbol with the dots in there being the 6 and 9 also.
Yeah, and it's the male, female, yin-yang. So I'm trying to make a point here throughout this video about transhumanism and bringing them together. Mm-hmm. And this is what they want to do, because these temples are split. Mm-hmm. So we have a moon temple that is the Dome of the Rock, which is an Islamic temple. And I guess the Jews share the temple, and there's the phallus stone in there that represents the egg of the world, the navel, the belly of the beast. And we did a video on that too. But Apollo's temple is over CERN, and then you have this temple here, and then you have Mount Meru, which is close by in India. And I do believe that has something to do with it as well. And we're going to get more into the Telluric currents and talk to Anthony too about some things in a minute here. So Janus was the ruler of Ionis, the gateway to the underworld, of which he possessed the keys. He was a he-she. Actually, he had 3 faces. And so I'm going to kind of talk about some Tauruses here and point out some energy and the bang here. There's some toroidal fields around the Earth. There's a scientist named David Talbott who says that there's 2 with positive and negative energy. Saturn has, energy at both of its poles. One end looks like an eye, like a camera, and the other end looks like a hexagon, and it moves around and around, like the people move around at Mecca, around the square, the Saturn square. But this is a picture of the Earth with the center being the galactic center. And I have some more pictures of this to show you where the Milky Way is. But this is how they see the bang, that, the ends of the Earth, I know it's sideways here, but there's negative, positive side, and in the center is where the bang is. And this represents the universe. So in the center is energy and supposedly some kind of like black hole. So and then also we've talked about the poles being representative of Isis and Osiris. Osiris at the South Pole, Iris at the North Pole, at the Polaris star, which represents Juno. See, here's the bang. And so here's the Milky Way in the center of the Earth. And this is where the Gemini twins are, too. It used to be Capricorn, and it changed over time. But this is what Mithra is. She's her male and female represents Neth, and we talked about Neth the other day, which represents Athena, Anat, Isis, Hathor. She represents many different names, and this has to do with Jupiter worship in the temples and in the temple that was destroyed in 70 AD. This is the first artifact that I have found that's the oldest one of the Mithra worship of the Jupiter, of the bull. We had another show that talked about the Saturn, Lord of the Rings, and Pluto the Destroyer, that talks about the bull worship and the ram, and explain that. And so this is from Hermopolis, where Thoth and Typhon was worshipped as the primordial egg, and this is what temple this came out of. It's in Berlin now with some other artifacts that we have discussed. For some reason, the Zeus's throne, where that is there also in Berlin.
And the House of One is also in Berlin. So Berlin is a very weird town when it comes to this New World Order thing. Yeah,
I was trying to remember the other artifact that was there in Berlin too.
Speaking of the throne of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John wrote in the book of Revelation 2 that Satan's throne, where Satan's throne is, and
Patmos.
And so that throne was Zeus's throne. So Zeus represents Satan. He represents Jupiter. And we talked too before that Sakuth is a blend of Saturn and Jupiter. They merge together.
Yeah, I just had that. I thought it was interesting with Adolf Hitler pushing for the New World Order and the fascists and the Nazis from Berlin, and the seat of Satan, or from Pergamum, the altar of Zeus, that the Kaiser had put there before World War I. And then, of course, Hitler builds off of that altar of Zeus But then Barack Obama reinstitutes the seat of Satan in his 2007, and so here we got the Nazis, and they're all over the place with the fascists and the Vatican and all this, the same thing happening all over again. So we have a repeat of the World War II situation with World War III coming up, and here we are with Berlin again, and Barack Obama's friends who took the seat of Satan from Berlin to Denver of all places, that's a fascinating one in and of itself. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that Denver airport has the Titans coming up from the ground in there. So
Nazis Part 2.
Yeah.
A lot of crazy stuff in that. But here's just some hieroglyphics showing the Djed pillar. This is all tied to Ptah's bloodline. Ptah's bloodline too. I'm sorry I don't have the verse here. I will post it in the link after the show. But the verses that tie to the bloodline of Ptah, and this is what this is all about. This is what CERN is all about. We talked about Z-pinch electric, the plasma Z-pinch, and this is tied to the Thunderbolts project with this symbol here, and you see the cup, how it goes up, and then there's one that goes down in this energy here. Well, this is a Peru artifact here, and then you have two gods sitting at the top. And then under it, it has, like, you see, it looks like the swastika turned a different way.
Mm-hmm. Is that picture also the chalice of the Grail? Is that also that? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting.
We lose
Yeah,
you?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I put this here to show that this is the center of the universe, where the lungs here, I think it also represents the heart. And then you have this too, this is Happy, and I have a lot of information to share with you on Happy and his father, mother, Imhotep, that's a female male, and Visor. And so I just wanted to kind of show this picture here. Do you see how the ruler used to sit on this stand here, and this, like Horus the bird would sit here, and it would sit in this area of the Dath. I can't play this, but this thing turns into a cup. It spins around, and it turns into a cup like this. And I want to point that cup out to you, Anthony, with CERN.
Sure.
Because I know it has a cup in it like that. And you see, that's why these cathedral, this is Rome, Italy, and see how they do these vaults at the top with a hole? They do it for a reason. It's a symbolism. And it's like CERN, and it's like these cups.
And that's like,
Here's another one.
that looks like a shaft too, Kris.
Yeah, this one has fiery angels flying around the top, see? And here's another one. And here's another one, St. Peter's Basilica. And this is, so this is what it looks like to me. Like, this cup is in the center of the earth. Okay? And because the universe represents the earth, and what we see above is below. And this is like the woman giving birth here. And here's another picture of it that I clipped out. Now, what I wanted to tell you, Anthony, and ask you about is the gluons interchangeable, representing the female and the male, going back and forth, becoming one.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the pyramid with the fire in the middle, and this is where everything happens, and this is the 6 and the 9 coming together as the 8 in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the gluons are. So this is another picture of it with the gluons in the center. And here's another one where the quark gluon and plasma in the center of the Earth where the black hole is, like I mentioned before, fifth dimensional space and time, and then fourth dimensional space and time. And so here's another math equation for the pyramid, and then here is the Aleph sign, and then in the center is the H, and then you have the P's here.
Gotcha.
So this is the another picture showing the plasma and the cups. Here's the toroidal field here, and then here's the other ones that are like one's above. See how one's going up and one's going down? So here's a picture that I think this was from CERN. I can't remember, but I think so. And this is the center where the golden fetus is, which is the egg. The cosmic egg is the universe, and then it's like a projection. And here's the bang of the Earth. And they say the Milky Way is as the remnant, like the cause of from the Big Bang. That's what happened to the Milky Way. And here's the Egyptian Tarwa. This is what they use to do the interdimensional travel. They did it with harmonics, and we're going to talk about the shaft and sound and water and the abyss in a little bit. But the Egyptians went in their boat. It was called a solar boat, and they would go into I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the building, but they would go in this building that was full of water and with their boat, and they would use a certain sound in it, like a cave with water in the cave, and they would use these certain harmonics, and then they were able to travel into the parallel universe.
Yeah, I think some people call this the Osiris machine also, just in popular terms.
Yeah, see at the top of it has the solar crown. And then this is called the Scimitar Way, and just like the happy is doing something to that. And then you see Kunum, and he's wearing them, and you see Horus, and we're going to talk about some DNA too, and talk about Ptah's name, PTH. And how this ties into transhumanism and the H+. Ptah, we've said before, his name is a German name. He is Tubal-Cain to the Freemasons. To the Egyptians, he was Cheops, Khufu. Khufu is the one who had the solar boat in the Giza pyramid, and he had shafts in that too that would go to the star Sirius. There's a hidden door in that pyramid, and behind it there's some mirrors, and the energy from the telluric waves underneath on the ley lines would connect to the star Sirius from above, and that energy would go inside the pyramid. It was really interesting because it's called the secret door. Here's another showing Ptah's name. His name, this is H. This is Sodpat, who is also Isis, and she's tied to the star Sirius. And this is the name of Sirius, and then this means the tooth, the shin. The shin is the letter of the Ba, which is the 666. So here's Imhotep. He is the father, mother, because Imhotep is a female, and if you, let's see, did I put that link? I'll put the link below, and you can link on all the links that are official links of the burials of all of the Egyptians and where they were buried, the numbers of them and who they were, and their true names. Actually, this is Ham's wife here. Let me see if I have the other one here. Okay, so Imhotep is a female, and she is named as the son of Ptah. So she is a female, known as a female male, actually, because she's called the son of Ptah. And a visor, too. they were evidently representative of the gods, you know, and like Osiris, you know, as Cain. So anyway, Imhotep is happy. This is happy, Anthony. This is happy.
Doesn't look very happy.
Okay, so happy, remember happy, this is happy. Happy is a male-female deity. This is happy. And this is Ham, Casikimwe is Ham, and his wife was the daughter of Imhotep. And her name is written in the Book of Jubilees. And the wives of Noah and Ham and Shem and Japheth are written in there. And this is Ham. He did the first stretching of the cord ceremony. We'll be getting more into that in another show. We're going to do something in regards to revealing the words in the Bible and what they mean with the stretching of the cord and some other things. But here's Imhotep again. Imhotep came from India. And she has the U on her arm, just like this symbol here. But that's where Imhotep is from. And I'll show a little bit more of that down there and how it's connected to Mount Meru. Okay, so Happy is Hapu, and this is showing Hapu in its vehicle, which is the snake. And this is the same as Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is inside of the snake. This is their vehicle that they use to travel interdimensional. Amenhotep was the son of Hapu. Happy. Happy was the god of the Nile and was an architect, a priest, a scribe, and a public official who held a number of offices among Amenhotep III, which was the father of Akhenaten. So here's another picture of Imhotep, and then another Indian, just to show you the matching of the U's. This is a real statue of Imhotep with the U's. And a little background on that, there's some history of the sinkholes happening during that time, and they said the dragon was moving underneath the earth, and there was an unsettling during that time, and there was a lot of sinkholes, and so there was something to do with India and the herbs that Imhotep needed, and then there was a birthing after that during that time. And we've talked before about the elixir of life, you know, the jade, the liquid, and the birthing of the gods, and how they tie in with water and the sea and the mountain, which was Mount Meru. Mount Meru, the top of it is said to be Sri Lanka in the ocean. So here's the Berkland currents, and here's the name of Ptah, and that means eternity. And just to let you know, this all means H8.
So take the Berkland current, and flip it upside down, and go back to the picture you just showed.
Oh yeah, with the U?
Go backwards. Go backwards, yeah. That's the Berkland current on the forehead, as well as the tuning fork.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when you get into talking about sound and resonance, it's tied into the resonance that's generated by the Berkland currents. Berkland currents and Telluric currents are audible. You can hear them. And we've already been hearing them from Saturn and other planets and moons, because they've been recorded by our satellites that are currently out there recording those electric sounds. So you're looking at Berkland currents and a tuning fork represented on their forehead, because it deals with the resonance, and that's where you're going. So I'll stop there.
And that was also the Twin Towers had the exact same structure with those tuning forks at the bottom of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it connects to the Twin Towers too.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the Egyptians had the tuning forks as the wazet, as their staff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's interesting there, yeah. Lots of
Continue, my dear.
connections. The Mayans, this is tied to a rope. In Mayan belief, a serpent rope emerges from the center of the galaxy, symbolized by an 8-rayed or 8-spoked wheel. Cosmic sap oozes from this world tree or cosmic cross, and that has to do with the same thing with the Egyptian tarwa. It's kind of like the same thing with the sap and them moving. And so this is another connection with 8 and the Mayans and the rope. That's so interesting there because I've tied this word so much in Strong's and with the Ark of the Covenant and lots of different words.
Hold up there for just a moment. At the top of your picture, that looks just like one of the detectors. We see that picture all the time at CERN.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same configuration. It's all 8s. The repetition of 8 happens throughout CERN.
Yeah. It represents the 4 below and the 4 above, and it represents Venus, like the star, and the Thunderbolts project with the planets coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, with the plasma energy and the Z-pinch, all of that stuff is all connected. I mean, no one can deny that it happened because there's evidence all over the world that this is a symbolism and all over the world that is in every country.
Anthony, would you say that serpent rope is also a Berkland current?
Absolutely.
As riding down the serpent rope?
Yeah, that's the connecting of the planets. The rope represents the Berkland currents connecting the planets. And Jupiter and Saturn used to be much closer to each other. And then there was a catastrophic event that separated the planets and sent them into their orbital pathways we see now. But during these times, they were much closer together. And so the Berkland currents, the plasma conduit that I often refer to, is what that rope is representing.
Yeah, and I just commented before the show the Jupiter-Saturn connection in the new SpongeBob movie where they collide into each other. So they keep showing these things in science, pop culture, and ancient history. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning right here just for the audience and people who may not have joined us before, but what we're showing here is the ancient representation of the electric universe. And if you really want to get into that, go to the Thunderbolts Project website, and they'll show you that really all of the ancients are trying to show and demonstrate in their context during those times what we would consider today to be plasma physics. So go ahead, Kris.
This is just showing another connection with the shin, which is the leg of the bull, and the sickle, the Ursa Major. And this is the world to come that the Jews wear on their head. This is the one to come. Add in the 4th shin, which is the Zayin, the 4th Vav, that represents a sword. And this is the name of Yahweh, and this is what it represents. And I'm going to go deeper and deeper in this to, with some other shows here to show the connections with the Ark of the Covenant. But this is the letters and the numbers. Y is 10, fire is Ray, YH equals 15, water is newt or nut, YHW is 21, and YHWH is 26, which represents the 13th pillar, and the earth is Jeb. And so that's just interesting because we get another 8 added up there, another 8. We're going to talk about 5 too in the 5th trumpet and how that ties in. He is 5, Wa is 6 is air. And so we just want to touch on that. And get into this verse that's coming up. But this is the fifth trumpet. The biblical Hebrew word for trumpet is shin pei resh. Diagonally crosses man of sin in the top center of the matrix at an ELS of 81. It is preceded by the Hebrew letter He, which we've talked in depth about before too, which is in the Hebrew numbering system, can represent the adjective fifth, which this is found beginning in Genesis 28:6 and ending in Genesis 28:12. So there's another tie. He is representative fifth. We have the fifth trumpet here, and I just kind of wanted to show this wormhole here at this point. Yeah, we don't want to get stuck in here as a worm for eternity. So H plus H8 DNA, the plus sign is binary operator. That indicates addition, as in 2 plus 3 is 5. So that also means 8H. Plus X means the same as X. X, we know, is the plus sign. It means, you know, the mark of the beast. And we've talked about that before, how they mark the blood of the bull with the ashes on your head, and that represents Tammuz.
Otherwise known as, what is it, Ash Sunday or Ash Friday or Ash Wednesday?
Yeah, Lent.
Ash Wednesday.
Lent,
Yeah.
Move that over. So this is Revelation 9:1, and you want to go ahead with this one, Heidi?
Yeah, well, yeah, with the scripture, hold on, let me just pull that up. Yeah, Revelation 9:1 says, the fifth angel, excuse me, sounded his trumpet and saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. And that's one thing that's really been, I just couldn't get that scripture out of my mind. The key to the, I'm losing my voice here. The key to the shaft of the abyss is, I feel like, just from, and I kind of got this from some of the other comments of people who left comments from the last show, and it was really helpful. I think the commenter was Amanda Barnes, but she had mentioned about the sound and how sound and vibration is tied into the word of the key of the shaft of the abyss. And from my conclusion, the word key is actually sound. So key is the sound is the key to the shaft of the abyss. And then I went and looked up what the shaft means in the concordance, Strong's Concordance, and it actually, now this what really floored me, it actually means a well. And that immediately made me think of, you know, one of our previous shows on the Dome of the Rock, with the Well of Souls being under that rock. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then another definition from the concordance means the pit of the abyss, because the netherworld is thought to increase in size. Now, I thought this is really interesting. Maybe Anthony has a little thing you can elaborate on this, but it says, the netherworld is thought to increase in size the further it extends from the surface of the earth, and so resemble a cistern, an orifice of which is narrow. So I thought that was pretty interesting as far as the definitions for shaft. But I believe that the word key is the word, is the sound. Sound is the key that opens the shaft to the abyss. And the word for pit is, in the original Greek, is freer. And what's interesting about that is that means well too. And it's referred to a couple of times in Scripture. I think the scripture was Luke, maybe Luke 14:5 and John 4:11. Yeah. So that was just really an interesting connection to me. And then, Kris, you had mentioned on the previous show last time that the word Satz, which is German for set, is any member of a musical piece. And then Tim mentioned that the Kabbalist holds certain tones to hit certain frequencies. So I was just getting a really big picture of just the key to the shaft of the abyss has something to do with sound and something to do with perhaps water, maybe vibrations going through water. And I know you have, Kris, you have a
yeah, I have a video, but I was just going to say that Satz also is the translation of the Bennu bird. Bennu is also Thoth or Thoth. But
yeah.
that is the Bennu bird, and he was the one that was worshipped at Hermopolis with Typhon. So just keep that in mind too. And then another thing is we're connecting 5 and Hey to the name Yahweh, which is the last letter of the H. The WYHW, and then the last letter, see, that means Yahu. That's connected to the hieroglyphs in Egypt. And but the H is the real important letter that we're focusing on, that's tied to the trumpet and the fifth, the fifth trumpet, and the star falling, and the key to the abyss, and the well of souls, and the Jews, they worship Yahweh. They're building a temple for him right there where the belly of the beast is. So just keep that in mind. Now, the other thing to keep in mind too, before I show this little clip here, is that Demeter in the Bible, where it says all the green grass was burned up. I think that was in it's in Revelation 8:7, I believe. And the green grass, when you translate it, translates to Demeter. Demeter is the god of fertility. When you see the Freemason symbols with a horn of plenty and everything, that's what it represents. But her name, also the male counterpart to her name, is Poseidon. So just keep that in mind, okay, when I'm showing this video here.
And that's the water connection there too.
So here's the video.
Mm-hmm.
And Kris, didn't you say that it takes some sort of musical harmony? That you were saying that the boat of Ra, that they believed that they would take some sort of musical harmony to open up portals. That's what the Egyptians did when they rode on their the Tiawar boat.
Yeah, and Cern is doing the same thing. They've even said that they are, and so they want to open up a parallel dimension, but they've admitted that they're doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So CERN isn't just a collider. It also is musical. It's also has the glass plates with the different languages on it. One of them is Sanskrit.
Can I give you the crossover?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we've heard of tera electron volts. Now this week they've finally begun colliding particles against one another, and they've achieved 13 tera electron volts. Think about voltage. Think about the fact that electricity, just like sound in your video, has a frequency to it. We all know about 60 cycles per second frequency of our AC current coming out of the wall. Think about tera electron volts in terms of the hertz or the resonant frequency that's generated by the frequency of electricity. They are using the collider to generate electricity, which is no different than the resonant frequency of sound. So they're generating electrical sound within the collider to resonate at the frequency that is required to open the abyss. There's some more that I'll add to that, but I just wanted you to digest that for a moment, because you have reached, again, one of those critical moments where you put it up there, and I don't think you realize from the physics standpoint, and that's why you have me sitting here, what it is that you're showing. Because you put it up there, right there, the ancients are demonstrating it, you're showing it, and you know what you're showing. But it's that one last little turn of the tumbler of the padlock, so to speak. And that's putting the electricity at CERN together in a resonant frequency fashion that explains how you open the abyss using the sound that they used in the ancient times, using water within the pyramid to generate electricity. Remember we talked about the holes in the base of the pyramid where the water would flow through, and that water would generate electricity? When they generated the electricity, they generated the sound, the resonant frequency that was required at a certain frequency, like the tuning fork that represented the frequency that was necessary to open the portal. So you've hit it again right out of the ballpark.
Well, it was with Heidi's help, because I started, she gave me the verse and was talking about the shaft, and then I started digging even further. When I get together with her, it's like, we both get 1,000 ideas in our heads, and so we have this, there's an ocean underneath the earth, and in the Well of Souls, there is a stream of water going down the rock, and it's called Zachariah's Tears. And I just thought that was interesting that they do have a stream of water going through the belly of the beast.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about your well and your cistern. And when we hear nowadays talk of a well, a lot of people think of the Mahdi, right? That supposedly he fell into the well, and they want to bring him back up out of the well. Well, from a physics standpoint, let's talk about the magnetosphere, the toroidal fields, the magnetic lines of force that surround the Earth. And if you happen to have a graphic of that, that would be helpful. I'll give you a moment. If you have a picture of the toroidal fields around the Earth with the opening at the North Pole and the opening at the South Pole. I know I'm catching you off guard here, but if you happen to have one.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Okay. Just so that we make good use of the time, the well is the shaft
Like this?
going through the earth. Perfect. There you go. Okay, excellent. Your cistern, your well, is that shaft of light going down through the earth. And I'm just being simplistic here. And then your opening to the well is at the top, and then there's an identical one at the bottom. You've got the North Pole at the top, South Pole at the bottom. So they're representing, when they talk about the cistern and the orifice, they're talking about this toroidal field. These are magnetic lines of force naturally occurring that surround the planet. And this goes back to the movement of current of particles, charged particles in the universe that are passing through the Earth. And as the particles move through the Earth, they are creating this magnetic lines of force around the Earth. So you have charged particles moving through a electrical current. There's an electrical current throughout the universe. The planet Earth happens to be negatively charged, and for example, the sun is positively charged. When the sun is producing charged particles in the form of protons that are accelerating away from the sun, they're increasing in speed the further they get from the sun, partly because they're moving through a magnetic field and the magnets are increasing the speed, but also the Earth being oppositely charged, negative. Like a magnet, it is attracting those protons to the Earth. As those protons strike the Earth and move through the core, which is iron, you now have the generating of magnetic lines of force around the Earth. That's what you're seeing here. So they're trying in the ancient times to describe what I just described to you. They're trying to describe the toroidal fields that they know surround the planet, and they're trying to tap into those fields for energy for multiple reasons and purposes. So the opening of the well is the North Pole. The well itself are the lines of energy, the electrical lines of or currents that are passing through the Earth to the South Pole. From the north to the south, that forms the well. In the center of the Earth, the core, is what they're calling the location of the Mahadi, what we would call the abyss. And so the key to opening this is to be able to have a resonant frequency that will open the North Pole and allow access to the abyss. I'll stop there.
Does
No.
that include the South Pole too?
Yes, but you have one direction of flow. The current flow runs from the North Pole to the South Pole. So if you were to draw arrows in, you'd have arrows going from top to bottom through the Earth.
Yeah. This is like the telluric currents. This is how they flow up and down. And they do go through, and they do go throughout the Earth in different ley lines. And during the sun, when the sun shines a certain time of the day, like in the morning and the evening, it's more powerful on those lines. And they could use that power. That's why they don't, the ancients, they wouldn't allow people to build anything on the ley lines. They built the Giza pyramid on it, and important structures, and they use that energy inside of the pyramid, just like they're using CERN. It's the same thing.
Right.
So if we overlay the, wait, could you go back for a second?
Yep.
Yeah, if we overlaid the serpent, what was it? The serpent rope we were talking about earlier,
Right.
Coming down with the Quetzalcoatl. Is that white?
Yes.
Line the rope?
Yes.
And the character on the rope would be in the abyss in the middle of the Earth there somewhere, holding on, coming up, or arising from it, or.
Right. And when we see Happy pulling on the ropes, essentially Happy represents the toroidal fields, the lines of magnetic force. Those are actually forces.
I got
That's actually pulling. That's movement. And so they're representing it with two individuals to represent those lines of force that are pulling on that rope in the center, which are electrical currents.
So right at the knot where they are, is that the supposedly the abyss center area
That would be the core of the Earth.
Core of the Earth. Okay.
Yeah, I think they call that the ISIS knot too.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's real interesting because when you watch that Lady Gaga video and you see them doing this, this is her buttocks. This is where the birthing happens right here in the center.
You know, when you were showing that video with the sound and the water, I'm laughing because those are exactly the helical currents of Berkland currents. Mm-hmm. So you can't separate sound from electricity. They're essentially one and the same in the sense of frequency. And so it doesn't surprise me at all to see the Berkland current helical pattern of the water as it is stimulated, it's vibrated, the water's being vibrated by the hertz, what was it, 24 hertz, I think they were vibrating the speakers at. And so it all matches because it's all tied in together. You can't separate the two, electricity and harmonics and frequency.
No, that's why the pyramids under the B-meter triangle have those holes in it for the,
right.
Yeah, and then it's made out of crystal, so that way it's like a frequency, and so I think that when CERN starts this thing up real powerfully, people are going to hear this frequency, and
yeah.
Do they have water at CERN? Is water used at all?
Not that I'm aware of, no. But
yeah, I think their goal is to to have this energy in order to connect to underneath the earth, and then the abyss underneath the earth, like we saw with that water. If you can imagine, the abyss is underneath the sea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I would imagine it's built near ley lines that are crossing, since they had that temple there in that area. They usually put those on the ley lines.
And it is.
Yeah,
definitely.
And the ley lines are always under subterranean water, so there is subterranean water associated with ley lines.
Sure. Look at the graphic here. If you look at the lines that are coming together in the center portion here, you know, that can be representative of a node of ley lines as well.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So, also, do you see the EKG rhythm right there? If you look above the lungs and below the knot in the center, do you see that pattern that's kind of a squiggly line?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
going up and going down on the, there you are.
Yeah, that's an EKG rhythm. That's what a heartbeat looks like. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Yeah.
Was that purposefully photoshopped in there, or is that an ancient drawing?
That's actually, I wish I could play it for you, but I think that, let me see if I can. Let me see if I can.
You know, my background, I was a paramedic for 27 years. And so I look at that and I go, well, that's a normal heartbeat. That's a PQRST rhythm. That's a normal,
it's not going to let me play it, but it's actually from a computer, and what they do is it's like an animation of the energy in the cups that I showed you, with in between one on top and one on bottom of the toroidal field. And
send me that video, because I'd like to know if they're actually looking at an experiment that just coincidentally happens to reproduce an EKG rhythm, or if they're overlaying an EKG rhythm to try to make a point that they're trying to show that this is just like a human heartbeat.
Yeah, and I think that the buttocks here, represents the sun and the moon.
Okay.
Like the energy, from the sun and the moon. So, and I know that Ptah, his name represents the moon, the energy from the moon, and then, number, which is the number 9, the female aspect of that.
Let me go back to the heartbeat for a moment.
Okay.
I'm sure you've all heard a heartbeat described as the rhythm of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And when we talk about, in the world of medicine, a heartbeat, we talk about the rhythm. You can have an arrhythmia, you can have different types of heartbeats that are abnormal, and we call those rhythms. Well, on an oscilloscope, we're looking at the rhythm. We're also looking at the conductive pathways, and we're looking at the frequency of the heart. So again, I make the point, you cannot distinguish between electricity and rhythm and sound, because you can hear this with a stethoscope. I can listen to a heartbeat and know whether it's normal or abnormal. So anyway, just a side point.
Yeah, that's some food for thought for sure. That's interesting. Yeah, I think that, just to touch on this again, to tell you that this is the male, female, sun and moon, what we looked at here, this is in the center. This is what we're talking about. That symbol is here in the center of the pyramid. And see here it says it's a heart and then an organ of reproduction also. And so it represents DNA.
So that top point in the middle is the fire in the middle of the pyramid then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was what we were looking at.
Yeah, so it's like the birthing of the third gender.
Well, I would offer to you that they're using diamonds as the crystals, because we all know that there's a inherent frequency that all crystals vibrate, they resonate at a specific frequency. That's why they were first used in the building of radios. Radios were first built using crystal radios, because the crystals already had a certain frequency in which they could pick up radio transmissions, and they could reproduce the sound from the electrical pathways, the electrical transmissions from a certain radio frequency or station. And again, I find it interesting. My book is 2048 Diamonds in the Rough. We've got another diamond represented here. And I really keep seeing this recurring theme coming up in my research and in your research of diamonds. And I think a couple of shows ago I said that I think that perhaps the capstone of the pyramids was not necessarily gold, but it was diamond.
Yeah, I've come across that in my research many times. It's called the Ben stone, and it's a crystal.
And your pineal gland has a, I heard it actually has, it's like a crystal, it's like a receiver, which is kind of interesting. I've read that.
It's an antenna. Right,
An antenna. Yeah.
Well, celebrities, some of them are having their family members and animals turned into a diamond and wearing them on their jewelry.
Seriously?
Yeah.
What do you mean turned into a diamond?
I read a couple of articles about that, about the carbon and how they turned their dead ancestor into like a diamond, and they put it in their ring or their necklace.
Yeah, you're talking about compressing their ashes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the carbon remnants in their ashes, compressing it into a diamond. Right. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I did read about that. I thought you were talking about nanodiamonds. You had me going for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, my second book is all nanodiamonds and people being turned into diamonds in essence. You had me there for a minute. Because, I want the audience to understand what goes on with the four of us here. We're not prophets, but we never hold ourselves up to be that. But we are certainly, I call it dropping into my head. There are certain things that get dropped into us, either in a dream state or when we're researching down our rabbit holes. And I'll give you an example. Telluric currents, which we're going to talk about in a minute. That was something that was just sort of dropped on me. And I won't go into the whole story of it, but it's an example of different things like diamonds that are given to us as touch points in our research to then realize, oh, that's what's going on. And that happens over and over to all four of us.
Yeah, just like that, I dream. I woke up and I had pi and square, and then I saw Demeter's name means pi, which is prehistoric Indo-European. Sorry, I got so much in my head. Had to get that out right there.
There's some nice facial hair patterns here too, but we won't get into that.
You know,
all right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Anthony, what you said. I wonder if I had a dream, and I was debating whether to share it or not, but it was very short, but it had to do with, you know how they have at those parks, at the water slides at those parks, and you know it's usually like a tunnel that you know has water streaming through it. Well, I had a dream of it was really kind of strange. I'm like, why am I dreaming of water parks? You know, and it was this tunnel. Going down that tunnel, you know, you shoot through the tunnel, and then you end up in the water. After, you know, I was like, it made me think of maybe that's how the fallen angels, they're going through those, I guess, wormholes or portals, and they're zooming down, and the water is like the current receptacle, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up in the belly of the beast or whatever, the heart of the earth. That was it.
Well, you know, when Jesus cast out demons, they said, "Oh, please don't send me to the abyss." You know, and so they knew he had the power to send them, and so that's just interesting that they're able to manifest into people, into animals. He sent them into pigs, and they went into the water, and so I just found that interesting, you know, that they can manifest and stuff, but they can go on different levels, and so I just thought about that. But
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, you know. I mean, it's only been recent, just in the last couple of months. And Kris, you were referring to this, the water underneath the Earth's mantle, that we have this vast sea of water that no one apparently has been aware of before, that exists. I don't know what it is, 1,000 miles below the crust or something, but in an inordinate amount of water that no one was aware of. And we keep hearing, you know, we hear about drilling for oil and going 5,000 feet down. Why have we not tapped into this sea if we've been tapping for oil at 5,000 feet? So I don't know what the depth on it. I'd have to go back and look at it. But that may be what you're referring to, Heidi, as well, is this vast subterranean sea is possibly, you know, a representation or part of the abyss, or the abyss itself may lay further towards the Earth core, as we, you know, in popular culture thought of the abyss as being, you know, hell and it being fire. We may have two different realms in there. We may have one of water and one of fire.
oh yeah,
So, what do you got?
Yeah, and you know, when the pit is, the bottomless pit is open, it says, there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace.
because there's volcanoes too.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's probably why, and that's tied to Tubal-Cain. He's you know, in the Freemasons, he's a creator of the craft, and he represents Vulcan, the volcano. So that could possibly be a tie into it with one of their stones from the volcano. I was going to just point out this push for transhumanism, and that it's very real. And the symbol for it is H+, and we talked about that above in this presentation with what H means 8, and the plus symbol means, and how it's added to the 5, and it represents the 5th trumpet and the angel Hay, which is wormwood. He's the one that's going to come. And so this transhumanism, abbreviated as H or H+, is an international cultural and intellectual movement with an eventual goal of fundamentally transforming the human condition by developing and making widely available technologies to greatly enhance human intellectual, physical, and psychological capacities. So this, I just want to wake people up to this big transhumanism agenda that's been going on for a long time. I wasn't even aware of the digital series. It was called H+, the digital series. And this was a TV series. And I don't watch TV, so I didn't even know about it. But the digital TV series H, this is one of the clips talking about merging man and machine, and build between Eastern powers, China headed to asteroid Africa. Trying to read that. Computers in the brain. Sounds like science fiction. So this is a show that's pushing that. There's so many things that are pushing it. I put some links in the bottom with the push for that over the years and how it's tied to the secret societies.
Well, my take on this is that this is modern-day Gnosticism and directed evolution, two different sections. Directed evolution, meaning we can't wait for the evolutionary process to take its time to get there, and man needs to intervene in a direction. And Gnosticism, meaning that man shall become more than what he is by a divine spark, which is, to me, the H+. But that's just science-driven Gnosticism. But go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to point out that this is really a serious thing, because there's many places that do these things, that are pushing for these things. And I'm going to point a few of those places out here in a minute. But so anyway, this series was based on future where 1/3 of the world's population has an implanted computer named H+, which connects to the human mind to the internet 24 hours a day. The implant was created by a company called H+, Nano Torrenta, an Irish biotechnology company founded with the intent of improving the medical sector with technology. The story begins in medias res, depicting the effects of the virus which infects the H+ implant. Concurrent episodes go back and forward in time to different settings, and various characters' viewpoints are used to tell the story. So this is just a TV series that they had, and that's what it was about. There's flags with this. Here's a building with the H+. Here's the avatar of the H+. They were selling tickets for a conference sponsored by the Institute of Ethics and Emerging Technology, and promotes ideas technological process can increase freedom, happiness, human flourishing, and democratic societies. It was founded by James Hughes, PhD, in 2004. And so this is it talks about his donations, and it provided publicly to religion and transhumanism.
How about your candidate for president in the Transhumanist Party? What was his name? It's not this Mike LaTorra guy. You remember when you brought that up, Kris?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
That's all right. Doesn't matter. But I just want to point out to the audience that there's actually a presidential candidate from an actual transhumanist political party here in the United States.
Wow. Yeah, see, there's so much that I haven't even connected until now. And one reason I did connect it was because of Face Like the Sun's video, which I'll show that, not his video, but some info on that. But look how this symbol is right here. This is the pi ratio, the golden ratio.
Yep.
on their symbol. Here's another one. Brighter Brains Institute is the producer of the Transhumanism Vision Conferences. Religion and transhumanism is the fourth topic addressed. So there's a lot of companies that are having conferences about religion and transhumanism.
Yeah, I want to point out that there's just been some magazine articles that have come out in the last month or so indicating that there's this real concerted effort to pull the brightest people from corporate world as well as the academic world into Silicon Valley, specifically Google, for the purpose of advancing artificial intelligence and transhumanism. This is the next evolution in the information age, is into the artificial intelligence age. And this is the way that the articles that I read were framed, that we've gone from agricultural to industrial to information and now to artificial intelligence. And so there is a rush to pull the brightest people together to have a, in a business sense, an economical edge, an economic edge over other competitors, but also there's a rush with the nations of the world to try to have the edge on your enemy, so to speak. Much like we saw with the arms race, there's now an artificial intelligence race between nations and between corporations. And of course, Google is going to be the nexus. They are going to be the focal point for the New World Order's achievement of artificial intelligence. And we have talked about the adiabatic quantum computer on many of the shows. And I just want to bring that up one more time, that the Model 2048 adiabatic quantum computer came out in February of this year in the public arena, and it is has the equivalent processing power of 7 billion human brains. And what was not produced or presented in the press release was the fact that it was artificially intelligent, even though that was the promotion back in 2010 that this computer, Model 2048, would achieve AI. What I'm saying here is that they have already achieved artificial intelligence with a quantum computer, the adiabatic quantum computer, and they are pulling together all of the brightest minds in the world to advance that AI agenda. And now you see the spin-offs, if you will, the spokes like this wheel here from the Mormon symbol, the spokes of AI, which move off into transhumanism, the changing of DNA. We've talked about the third strand of DNA. This all comes full circle back to CERN as well. So I'll let you guys go on.
Yeah, it makes you think of what the one world religion will become when you look at these guys, because Mormonism's the spin-off of Freemasonry, which is spinning us off into the sci-fi spirituality of transhumanism. And so, yeah, will the one world religion be a transhumanist-driven, alien, intervening kind of philosophy that comes up because of science, a new science spirituality? I mean, it's amazing to think about.
Well, technology is the new religion.
Mm-hmm.
If you take technology and lay it over all of the religious organizations in the world, you lay it over all of the economic models of the world, you lay it over all of the legal structures of the world, the constitutions. If you put technology over as an umbrella over everything, you have that as the new world religion. And CERN is leading that new religion. It is forming that new religion because it has the brightest minds in physics and engineering there, just like you have the brightest minds in computer technology with Google. You also now have the priests of the religion. And we've talked about this before, that the physicists, the scientists, are the priests of the new religion. They hold their own religious vocabulary in the form of mathematics and quantum physics. When people talk about quarks and muons and all of this stuff, the average person has no ability to relate to those words. When we talk about the Higgs field and the Higgs boson, or we even get into the basics of quantum mechanics, the average person cannot understand that. And that's part of our mission here, is to translate the science and the ancient religious symbols and practices that Kris brings to the table, bring those together to show that this is really a religion, and the new priests are the scientists who have their own language that the average person cannot decipher. And that's what we're doing. We're deciphering this for everybody.
Amen.
Yeah, they're going to offer people just like Satan did. You want to be your own God? You want to live longer? You want to have, you want to upgrade your body? You want to have power? This is what they will end up offering people if they. I mean, I'm sure people are already doing these things, but.
Well, that's why they emphasize the Olympians so much, because you just have this pantheon of gods. It fits with humanity that wants to upgrade themselves. Everybody can be their own little gods, little pans and little whatever they want to be.
Funny, yeah. you bring up the Olympics real quick. I'll just throw this in. It will become fashionable to lose your arms and legs. It will become fashionable to lose your eyes and ears. It will become fashionable to have those replacement limbs, replacement eyes, and replacement ears. That will be the new fashion. You give it just a year or two, and it will become mainstream to have yourself surgically altered, and no longer will you, you just have a human pair of legs? What's wrong with you? Can't you afford to have the newest cyborg legs? Can't you be the $6 million man?
Mm-hmm.
That will become the new fashion of the elite, to have their bodies completely changed in intermediate steps, starting with the limbs and the eyes and the ears. Eventually, the ultimate for the elite are to replace their entire body. That will be under the heading of it's fashionable.
Right.
That's why you see what's going on in the world of fashion today.
That's what Tony Stark and all that Iron Man stuff, become the machine. Download conscious. We were talking about this new show, Splinter, that just came out this week, and it's about downloading your consciousness into a deceased person's brain to decipher their memories. But the point is downloading your consciousness into somebody else or to something else. And they're just not going to stop. They're not going to stop. You have the $6 million man mentality, the Olympians, this godless philosophy. We're going beyond God. That's old school. We can be our own gods, which is just straight back to the Garden of Eden.
And
Heidi wanted to jump in.
Well, I was just going to say, you reminded me of something I saw, a video. They have them out on YouTube. I forgot the name of it, but they definitely they have an athletic event coming up, I think, real soon, of just that. I don't know the name. Do you know the name, Tim?
I don't remember, but it's like a Paralympics, but
yeah.
it's not but for
not the Special Olympics.
Right.
They all have some sort of like they have a bionic leg, they have a bionic arm, and they're having like this competition where they're going to compete to see, who wins.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen the commercials. Yeah, go ahead.
See that become the new Olympics, because eventually your Olympians will be allowed to have bionics, and that will just move the whole transhuman agenda forward, because in popular culture, people love the Olympics. And so if they allow, how we've had drug screening for years on the Olympics, well, now it's going to be okay, because they're going to change the rules, they're going to change what the Olympics are all about, and they are going to allow people to have bionic races, and it will be corporate races to see which corporation has the best bionics. And therefore, if your guy wins the event, that corporation will sell more of its bionic limbs.
Yeah, again, it goes back to Hitler when they had the Olympics in '36, I believe. They were getting into this whole Lebensborn, Uberman breeding program for their Olympians, and they were embarrassed at that Olympics. But it's the same mentality again, and that's why this Nazi thing keeps paralleling, because it's the eugenicists, the Uberman gang. It's just the same philosophy, just with higher technology.
All right, Kris.
Her dog's talking to her.
Okay, I was just going to move on and say that Tom Horn, Face Like the Sun, did a video. I linked it at the bottom, and it's about him joining with Tom Horn on this project they're doing called INHUMAN. The next and final phase of man is here. And so watch that video. I think it's going to open this discussion with the people that are saying Christians should embrace transhumanism. So this is a big issue right now, and that's why they're having all these conferences with transhumanism and religion and all of that. They're going to have this lady, Natasha Vita Moore. She's the CEO of Humanity Plus, which is H+. And she's going to be joining them with her thoughts on that. She believes that people should enhance their bodies, or they should have a choice not to if they don't want to. And so I just thought that was interesting. And they do have an H+ magazine too. If you want to read the magazine, it has information about transhumanism. And so I was just going to show a couple of clips about time, never offline, with all of this gadgets that they have. Here's another magazine talking about the perfect partner being a robot. And here's another guy. He's we're all transhumanists now. There's just a big push for it, a big push for this out there, and we're going to be hearing more and more about it, I'm sure. Here's the Egyptian hieroglyphic sign for plus and minus. It's resembling legs walking in a direction in which the text was written. And in Europe, in early 15th century, the letters P and M were used for the plus sign. So the plus is a simplification of Latin ET. Mm-hmm. Here's Ptah. And I'm Hotep, same thing. I'm Hotep, the lower self of Ptah, which is the higher self, which is Tubal-Cain. And so HTP is his name is I'm Hotep, and PTH is his name is Ptah. Forwards and backwards, higher self, lower self. So that's what the bloodline is. The bloodline is H+. This is a bloodline that they're talking about. And it is transhumanism, because Saturn is, Satan, and he is part computer, is a supercomputer, and this is what Cern is connecting to. This is why they do their rituals with the World Trade Center and have all these antennas, and this is how we have Wi-Fi and the connections to that with Cern. But here's just some more information pushing it. Kanye West, Beyonce, Christina Aguilera, Lady Gaga. This is a lot of showing this push for this out in the showing this push for this transhumanism all out in the entertainment industry as well.
And this has been going on for a long time too, because that whole
I don't pay attention to it, so now I'm really paying more attention to it. But yeah, it's out there.
Metropolis movie from I think 1929.
Yeah,
was alluding to that, but that was that version back then. Now it's far advanced.
Yeah, I'm sure that this new symbol of the Pope on this website for the Pope is he's Flat Pope instead of Fat. I don't know if you ever heard of Flat Stanley, but kids at different schools, they mail Flat Stanley to their family member in other states, and they write a letter. They take pictures with Fat Stanley, and it's supposed to be this fun thing. Well, just pointing out the Saturn symbol on his chest here, and where the cross is on this belt. Blue and red are always belts, and blue and red ties, if you focus on that, with the priest and the priesthood that worship these gods, which are fallen angels. But interestingly, the Pope was called the World Pope. He's going to be addressing Congress on September 24th, and we have Cern starting up at that time. It's going to be the autumn equinox and the Day of Atonement. And so I know this cross probably means something on the United States. I don't know what yet. I haven't looked that far into that, but he was also on this time cover with the horns on his head. That's no coincidence, I'm sure. This is another person of the year in 2012. In 1938, it was Hitler. They're probably related to each other. And these people that worship the dragon, I just want to point out how they have the plus on their clothing, and she has it on her crown. See?
Yep.
And they're related to each other. And just interesting, we've gone over before on a lot on the symbolism of the Celtic cross, which is the taw, the mark. And
Yep.
this is...
And it was the Maltese cross that was used as the Iron Cross with the Nazis, and was their highest award to a soldier. Was the Iron Cross.
That's because they are Nazis.
Yep.
They really are. They're Germans. I mean, Ptah's a German name. The Egyptian Neth, all of them, they're German names, and this is who they worship from the Ogdo, from the egg. And that's why the Vatican's tied to the Temple on the Mount in that area there, too.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how she has this, she has Anubis ears on her mask, and then he has the ram.
Yep.
And this is Lady Gaga with the number H8. And there was a court hearing in California. It was appealed to make gay marriage illegal, and that's probably where that came from. But there's no coincidences. So I just wanted to point out again, 69 is also 8. It is 555 or 15. 815 is also a lot of occult symbols. It means 88. H8 is 88. 88 is the Madrid fault line in the United States of America, and it is also connected to the District of Columbia, and it's connected to DNA and a lot of things. I mean, this is, Enter the Stars does a lot of videos on that number, but it is very occultic, and it has to do with DNA. And here's another on Head. We were talking about him being tied to the fifth trumpet and his letter with the Hebrew alphabet. Egyptian inscriptions that mention a land of Shasu Yahu, the Shasu being nomads from the region of the Midian and Edom, and Yahu, and more accurately YHW, a place name. There is considerable acceptance among scholars that YHW refers to the name Yahweh, and H is the 8th letter. So here you see the YHW and the H missing. Well, the H is the one to come, and that's what I keep saying. Mm-hmm. And it has to be tied to wormwood and the fifth trumpet. So interestingly enough, that is tied to the temple. It's tied to the fifth trumpet, and Edom are the Edomites, and that is also tied to the Reds. Moses' father-in-law was Esau's son, and he was an Edomite, and he was called, at that point he was a priest called the Kenite. And anyhow, I do believe his father-in-law is tied to the name Ark. Ark is an Egyptian word, and I'm still looking into that, but those are just some interesting connections if you translate into the Strongs and see what those words mean, then you get a better understanding of that and what that real covenant was all about. The 23rd century BC, the Sumerian king Nimrod built a ladder. It symbolized an H, or a tower, actually a gate that reached from Babylon to the stars. Leon M. Letterman, have you heard of him, Anthony?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I think he was a scientist at CERN at some point, and he says that the search for the Higgs is actually a recreation of the Tower of Babel. So I just wanted to point that out. And so he talked about the book of Genesis, and he did say that, and I thought that was interesting. You know, I just talked about Nimrod here and the letter H, and he's talking about Higgs. The Higgs is a representation of the letter H.
All right. That's great. That's a great connection.
Yeah, and then here, it's H is a letter of the moon in Arab. So those were sun letters and those were moon letters. Biblical scholars say Nimrod was known as Osiris, the Egyptian god of resurrection in Egypt. Both are associated with ladders or stairways to heaven. This is key inside Seti's 14th century BC temple of the Abydos. Abydos in the Osiris Chapel is the magnificent depiction of Osiris as a pillar or tower. In fact, the Egyptians called the Osiris pillar the Tawar, or bond between heaven and earth. Bob relates to man, and the letter Zayin, woman, in a physical sense. In a spiritual sense, these letters relate to two channels of energy along our spinal column. Vav and Sayin can also represent the spinal column, Zayin modified according to the process of the light. Chet is the union of the two letters, Vav and Sayin.
So the way they're doing that is the Berkland crossing 8 there with the serpent.
Yeah, that's Ptah's name, H. This snake wrapped around like this is the letter H in Egypt.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm glad you said that, Tim. I mean, we keep seeing these representations that I just look at them through the eyes of physics. I have my physics glasses on, and I look at all of these symbols and the letters and these representations, and I just laugh because it's just electricity. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. We're just talking about representations of electricity in different forms of it. Berkland currents, plasma, discharges. It's just, if people will just wrap their head around the fact that the universe is comprised of electricity and plasma. These are charged particles, ions. Then you can see everything else in the universe through those lenses and understand why they put so much effort into creating all these gods, all of these symbols. They utilize rope, they utilize snakes. All of this stuff is in an effort to grasp and to represent and to communicate to people in the future. They're communicating to us what the physics are that are required to recreate their golden age, and that's where you're headed. I think Kris is talking more about the golden age.
Yeah.
Hey, Anthony, I had a question from your medical background. On the spinal cord, where the groupings of what you say, nerves come off in like nodes, don't they? Don't they like come off in sections?
Yeah, they're bundles.
In bundles, would that also line up with these crossing points of the?
Oh, sure.
I'm just wondering, just from the anatomical, if it supports the Berkland electric current pattern with how they come off the spine.
Yeah, they do, because at different stages going down the spine, you'll find nerves that, easy way to put it, nerves that operate the arms, nerves at a different node location that operate the legs, and also you have nerves that operate the different organs, and those are all tied into the spinal column. So yes, there are definitely nodes where electrical currents come together. And if you look at for example, look at the brain. If you take a slice of a neuron, you take a slice of the brain, you take a neuron, you slice it very thin, and you put it under a microscope, that pattern of the node of the neuron and then the branching out of the electrical pathways from that node looks exactly like the universe. So you take a node and you look at a plasma node with its electrical pathways coming out. For example, a nebulous or a nebula of stars, a grouping of stars, a nebula is a great way to say that is the same as the neuron in our brain. So again, we have the replication of the patterns, microscopic all the way to the macroscopic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome.
The lady that I was talking about earlier, the CEO of Humanity Plus, or Humanitarian, the HP,
yeah.
The CEO, they have a machine called the Smart Machine. And I believe that it connects to the nerves in the body, and
sure.
Still looking into that. But they also have so they have a smart machine and they have smart skin.
Yep.
You can wrap your electronics not just around maybe a ball pen, but even your hair.
And now they have clothing that has fibers, conductive fibers woven into the fabric of the clothing, so that you can actually wear a interactive clothing that will interact with your body and also with external electronic devices.
Yeah, to play games with in the clothing. I mean, you don't even know if you're buying clothing, what's in the clothing. That is just crazy.
Sure.
I mean, we have poison in our food and all kinds of stuff right now in this world. It's just crazy, but just showing a little closer ups what the skin looks like and how the electricity goes through this gold here.
There you go. Does that not remind you of the third strand of DNA coated with gold that I talk about all the time?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you can have it on the skin and you can have it on your DNA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here is the fountain of youth. According to Nick Bostrom, transcendentalist impulses have been expressed at least as far back as the quest for immortality in the Epic of Gilgamesh, as well as historical requests for the fountain of youth, the elixir of life, and the efforts to stave off aging and death. And we talked before in our Bermuda Triangle video about the churning of the sea and the pineal gland of the Lord Shiva. So this is the symbol of that elixir of life and the jade liquid and becoming the king. And this is what they're doing, but they're just doing it in a different way with CERN. You see, this is the evolutionary path of beings. This is how they got their language in Sanskrit, was by meditation, and they would find their higher self through light. And so when you see the Egyptians sitting on their thrones, they are being their higher self sitting on the cubes. And that's how they would get their language, by, Om and doing those sounds and traveling out of their body into different dimensions and seeing these patterns. And that's how they got their language. But do you see how this is Mount Meru? Mount Meru, which is Mount Sumeru, it was like a 9,000-foot mountain, and huge mountain. The top of it broke off. And so this is Nashville, Tennessee, and it has a depiction of Mount Meru in Nashville, Tennessee.
That's what I was thinking of.
I put a link down there with William Henry's research on this stuff and the connections that you can see below. They also have a reinterpretation of Athena's temple, and we talked about Athena, how she's the resurrected Saturn male as a female, as Mithra, the Ogdode, the the 8 deities, 4 below and 4 above. See how she has the helm in her hand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you see the H next to your Muru in the previous slide?
This one?
Look off to the right.
Oh, the building.
You mean this thing here?
You see your H.
Yeah.
So,
that's also a keyhole. If you look at that, it's like the antique keyhole on a door.
yeah.
See how it had, I got another picture of this, but see the 3 stars here?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Watch this. Here it is. The stone circle or Gilgal, the 3 stars symbolize the 3rd eye and enlightenment.
Wow.
And Stonehenge.
And Stonehenge. Wow.
That's also the collider.
Wow, yeah.
You see the 2 different pipes, the 2 different beam lines?
Wow.
One inside the other? That's the collider right there.
My goodness.
Here's Obama at Stonehenge, see? They downloaded energy and these stones is what they did. Here's the sphere. It's the black sun.
Yeah, that's unreal.
It's called the Meru axis for Mount Meru. Here's Meru with the stacking, see how it stacks up, and then here's the Tennessee Bicentennial Capitol Mall.
Wow.
And this looks like the Hoover Dam, see?
Sure.
That also looks like Conan's sword right there also.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And the one on the left, yeah, there you go.
Wow. Look at this.
Got it. You're all over it. You got it.
This is the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the geometry, the laser. This is like the toroidal stack. And this is a lot of ancient drawings all over the world that copy this stack that we looked at before that was from like the Thunderbolts project and stuff.
So let me explain that a little bit. As you add disks going upward, you add voltage. So you are looking at, essentially, if you want a laser weapon, that one on the left right there, that is Poseidon's trident.
Oh.
That, if you look at Star Wars, the lightsaber, okay, what you're looking at in the picture that you show, go back to the one you were showing from Thunderbolts. That's how you increase the power of the laser, is by stacking those disks. You're able to increase the voltage, therefore the power of that laser. And then on the right-hand side, like you said, those are the of what they were seeing back in those days. So the one on the left is more of a modern representation, although it's a conceptual drawing of what occurred in ancient times. You're actually seeing the ancient showing a high-tech laser weapon that we would be able to build today.
Yeah, this is from a mountain. I do believe there was a volcano under there, and it's called a stereo something volcano, and it's underneath there. And so this is showing the churning of the sea and him becoming God. This area in India, this is where Mount Meru is. Okay, this is where all the most energy in the world used to go to on the Telluric Waves when the pole star used to be Thuban.
Really?
Was this area. Yep. All the energy in the world, this was the key point of all the magnetics in the world right here.
I just had a question, like with the stacking of the wave, is that what you said?
Of those discs?
These things?
Yeah, discs. Is that what they are doing at CERN, that they are increasing the discs when they ramp up the the TEV?
The TEVs.
The TEVs, yeah.
Right. No, you can think of it as increasing the power, just like they're increasing the power when they stack these disks. However, they're not stacking disks at CERN. They're generating power from the movement of the accelerated particles, which generates magnetic power, but then the collision themselves generates electrical power, which also increases the magnetic forces. Everything at CERN is related to electromagnetic energy. What we're looking at here is electromagnetic energy, but it's in the form of producing a beam of electricity, not necessarily a laser beam. You're actually talking about a plasma beam. So here they're talking about stacking toroids. And what are they saying here from the neighboring pairs? Okay. But in this representation here, what you would have coming out instead of a lightsaber or a laser beam is actually a jet of plasma energy. Those are accelerated particles moving out from the end of that. So the stacks are rings of magnetic energy, lines of magnetic force, and those are donut shaped, and they are accelerating through their center those particles in the form of plasma and a plasma discharge that comes out at one end. And it comes out at one end because it's the magnetic pole that is a positive pole, a proton pole, if you will, at the top end of this diagram or this conceptual drawing. So it's essentially what you have is you have particles that move through the center of the donut, and every time it passes through a donut, it increases in speed. That's a particle accelerator on the left. Mm-hmm. And they're doing the same thing at CERN with a new project, a new experiment, they call it, and it is called AWAKE. And that's the acronym is AWAKE. They're actually using magnets to accelerate plasma on a large scale. And this is a small scale representation of that.
Okay.
I had a follow-up question to that. Miro in Nashville. Why would they have that symbol in the Music City?
Yeah, where sound is, right?
Well, yeah, what has it got to do with sound? I mean, it's a music city. That's the hub of country music. That's the hub of we've had Christian music there too. But we got that symbology in that town. And I'm wondering, how's that associated with sound? We know CERN's associated with, we talked about that with the sound and CERN and things like that, resonance. What would that symbol be doing? How would that be connected to a music city?
Yeah, probably from the Telluric Waves, the ley lines, because they changed over time whenever, after the cataclysmic event and when Khufu's pyramid was built and the Polaris star changed during that time. I bet that's why. I bet the energy around the world probably changed, because think about this. Think about when, where the pyramids are, and they built the new temple on where the Dome of the Rock is. So there was no temple before them. Solomon's temple was the first one that they built. And so he built it to these four deities that we're talking about. And so that's probably why, because of the...
Well, the poles are shifting, as you know. The poles are never stable. The North Pole, as you know, is migrating towards Russia and has out to about 23 degrees. It's changed just in our lifetime. So, yes, of course, you're going to have the Telluric nodes, the currents, the lines, the ley lines, all shifting because there's nothing stable about the Earth. The lines of magnetic force, the ley lines, and the Telluric currents that are generated by those magnetic lines of force from the magnetosphere that pass through the Earth itself, all of that is unstable. It's not stable because the Earth is spinning, and because of its precession of the pole and its precession through the universe, it is always changing in its magnetic lines of force and the patterns of those lines.
Do you think that that Miru thing can be being used like a tuning fork to like boost the a frequency or something like that for that area? Or I mean, I'm going off the edge with some of my thinking here, but I mean, is it like a booster or some sort?
I don't know if it's so much a booster as it is just a concentration, a focal point. I suppose it could be a booster, but it's not an amplifier as much as it is a concentration of the lines of telluric currents that are generated by the toroidal fields around the planet. I mean, you have an interaction of the magnetosphere and the toroidal fields that are outside the magnetosphere, all of which are conductive and interact with the Earth's crust. The Earth is a battery. Think of the Earth as a battery and it having a north and south end to the battery. And because it's electrical, it's generating these magnetic fields. And wherever the lines of magnetic force cross is where you have a concentration of not only the magnetic lines of force, but the telluric currents that are generated by those magnetic lines of force. And the telluric currents then are manifest as gravimetric waves, gravity waves that move through the crust and through the mantle and increase volcanic activity and earthquakes. And that's really what we've been seeing with the activities at CERN. And now that they're generating collisions or generating electricity and electromagnetic forces from those collisions, we're going to see even more earthquake and volcanic activity because they're generating more telluric waves that reflect off and conduct from the magnetosphere back to the Earth and then cause these gravimetric waves to propagate across the crust of the Earth.
Wow, so that must be why they had to make that machine to do that, because if Mount Meru is no longer able to be used for that, they used it for opening up the pit, you know, the demons would come out and they would have to have the elixir of life for their king or whatever. And so my thoughts on that is, you know, the top of the mountain is no longer there. And so they have to build this so they can have that kind of energy that they had at Mount Meru.
I would suggest that the top of the mountain was removed due to a plasma discharge. If you look at the surface of asteroids, moons, and planets, but especially just look at our own moon or small asteroids, they have evidence of plasma discharges taking place between bodies. You have bodies that have opposite charges. You have a capacitance within those bodies. When they come close to each other, there's a discharge, just like an arc welder. And the pitting of an arc welder, of that plasma discharge in an arc welder, that pitting that occurs on the surface of metal is identical to the surface of the moon and other asteroids and planetoids that have what science has tried to explain as the impact of meteorites. Those are not impacts. Those are not impact craters. There's been definitive, by Thunderbolt's project, definitive analysis and reproduction in the laboratory of exactly the same pattern that you see on the surface of those moons, being exactly the same pattern on the surface of metal in the impact of plasma discharges. And so when you talk about Mount Meru losing the top of the mountain, I would suggest that that was an interaction between a heavenly body in the form of a plasma discharge taking off the top of the mountain. Because if it's a concentration of telluric currents and magnetic lines of force, it would make sense that it was a point of discharge between the Earth and a planetary object. It may have been a passing comet. It may have been a planet such as Saturn. I don't know. But that's worth exploring.
Yeah, this is a telluric crossing point in London. So that's how they work. You know, they make, this is the most energy that you can get is when one's a weaker energy and one's a stronger energy. But but this is a crossing point of that. I had one in Egypt too, but I didn't get that slide on here. But
hold that for a moment. Now, Tim, popular culture, what's been going on for the last few weeks? Charlie, the crossing of the pencils.
Oh yeah, yeah. That is one story I haven't followed, but yes, I'm aware of other people are following it in the demon aspect related to it.
Yeah, the pencils represent the crossing of carbon and the concentration at the pencil point of carbon or lead, and they are reproducing with the crossing of the pencils of the crossing of the telluric currents in a very small way, and they're using that to call up a Mexican demon who is manifesting by voice, but also there's been occurrences where they have photographed this demon. So take that from a very small, what am I thinking, ritual with two pencils, and you look at the telluric currents here that are crossed, and imagine the amount of demonic power in that ritual right there in London.
Yeah, Kris and I had talked about the biblical the Bible's coming alive to a lot of people, and one of those areas is why did they destroy the high places, and why did they destroy these altars and stuff? Well, because they produced their entry points for these spirits to come out of that were set up in the land, and this kind of thing is just bringing that out, that people you're seeing why something in the Bible happened now with what's going on now. You don't want to have these things being entry points for demonic presences.
That's right. We talked about Saturn, and you have all these small rituals that are taking place, and you have one or two or a group of demons that are coming through in different areas, but they want to open up the real crossing point. They want to open up the real portal, and when they talk about interdimensional portal, it's really misleading to talk about different dimensions. What we're really talking about are gateways to open a prison. We can say it's interdimensional, but it really has to do with opening up a prison environment, the abyss here on Earth, but also in Saturn, and allowing those entities to escape from their prison. Kris, go ahead.
It's like a trick of the mind. I see it as, when Satan gets a hold of your head and you let him have your consciousness, he can make you see anything he wants. Mm-hmm. When at the same time, you could be in a very scary place and not even see it because he's projecting what he wants you to see. That's what is the ascending in the light, the chakras. That's what that is all about. And so he's leading people into that direction, but it's actually, like you said, like a prison and going through these gates and stuff. It's a very twisted thing, but here's the flower, here's the stem that we were talking about, like the shaft. And this is the snake, which represents the electricity or the bulb. And here's the flower. So this represents like the birthing to me. And because we know that King Tut, he was born from a lotus flower. And so was Nefertun. And so this is just interesting. I had a picture of the crossing because this crossing like this was on where the Giza pyramid is too, where the pyramids are in Egypt.
There's also a crossing at Cern.
Oh, yeah.
Should have known.
This is the Hoover Dam, and I think this was a German team that they put on here with the goat, and I just wanted to kind of point out some things that they're doing there at the Hoover Dam. They're doing these projections. The truck is driving over the American flag on the ground. And it has the infinity sign here, the 8.
Yep.
It's real interesting. There was another one about 1111 or some light or something. I forgot what it was, but I didn't get that one.
Also, the color of the truck is
Oh.
the UN white.
Oh,
UN
nice.
white vehicles.
Oh, great. Little Nazis. No,
Yeah,
no.
on this I was going to show on this crystal skull. This skull has a lot of downloaded energy. It's like a computer, and we don't even know what's downloaded all in these skulls. They've been found all over the world, and so I just wanted to point that out. That was interesting. That there's some.
Now, in my book 2048 Diamonds in the Rough, we talk about the computers being the computers that the good guys are using in the shape of a 600 cell tetrahedron, which are a spherical shaped computer. That computer is comprised of self-replicating nanodiamond. And the reason that it is diamond is because you can use a laser to program to store digital energy, digital information inside a nanodiamond. And once you use that laser essentially to transmit or etch digital information into a stable diamond, that digital information remains stable as long as that diamond is intact. You can never, pardon me, you can never change that digital information unless you use a laser to change the information or you destroy the diamond. So these crystal skulls are comprised of diamond, and they have digital information that have been inserted into the lattice of the diamond structure itself. If you look at diamond under an electron microscope, it's a lattice structure. It's like a ladder, and we've talked about ladders before here. And so all of that digital information is stable within that crystal skull, and all it takes is a laser at the right frequency to decode and extract that digital information from that diamond skull.
Wow. So isn't there lasers in CERN too?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, lots of lasers. I think one, did you say there was like a ruby laser from a ruby?
Yeah, they do use different types. There's ruby, and there's also emerald and sapphire. So it depends on what you're trying to do. But yes, typically a laser uses a precious stone as its resonator, as its frequency controller.
Yeah. So these crystal skulls, they have downloaded computer data in them, and then so does stones, like the Stonehenge, they do too. They have data entered into them, and so does the Giza Pyramid. It's like a computer. So they have digital computer information downloaded into them.
That's right, and it's all stable as long as the stone or the diamond or the granite at the Giza Pyramid remain intact, so does the digital information.
Wow.
So what would happen if somebody took a big hammer and smashed it?
Then you lose the information.
I don't know. That would be something fun to do. I don't know. I was just thinking, oh, that would be nice to take a big hammer.
All it takes is an earthquake. All it takes is an earthquake.
Yeah.
You know, and I talk about CERN being a very fragile machine. In my estimate, if they had a 4.0 earthquake or greater, that machine would be gone. It would be toast. They'd never be able to rebuild it.
Wow. Can you imagine never be able to rebuild it, and they spent over $10 billion on that when that could have ended world hunger?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you think that all the countries in the world could come together with that money that they eat. I think they're the Rothschilds is behind it all, you know. They're called the Reds from the Esau side. And so they're building this thing. I mean, can you imagine $10 billion and all this time, you know, they could have done it.
All those people, all that brain power, probably the smartest people in the world. And if we had applied that to good things like water,
Mm-hmm.
the environment,
Mm-hmm.
food production, housing, curing of diseases. If you want to live forever, we have the potential to do that through very positive, holistic processes rather than what they're doing now. And you don't have to do it through genetic modification.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it just shows you the pursuit of wisdom at all costs and the fallen state of the heart and the wickedness of man. And the wickedness always wins out, no matter how sharp you are.
For a time.
Yeah.
For a time.
I mean, until you get saved, you know. And, you know, yes, the Lord Jesus, of course, is going to have his say in this whole matter.
Yeah.
Well, here is a swastika bridge. This is near the Hoover Dam. I do believe it's in Yuma. It's around the river. So I just wanted to show this picture that I found of the swastika bridge that they have.
Yeah, I have no doubt that the Hoover Dam's going to be destroyed at some point by their own design. It's all ceremonial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have a star map around, you know, they named it after Hoover, and he was a Freemason, and he actually was in some trouble for some things that he was doing, you know. And
you mean cross-dressing? You mean his cross-dressing?
No. Well, he was in trouble for doing some sick things, but
I thought maybe Vanity Fair had a picture of him on the cover back then, also.
Have a lot in common with Jenner.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the new generation. That's what I call it.
The
degeneration.
The degeneration, yes.
You know, in some of the Catholic Church, they have three kings with the triangles above their head, and this represents the three pyramids and the three kings at Giza. And here's just a picture of Homer Simpson. He's very mad at the Hoover Dam. He does not like it at all. He became a giant like Nimrod, see?
Why doesn't he like the Hoover Dam?
I don't know.
Come on, Tim, you watch this stuff. You got to know why.
Oh, no, I have not watched The Simpsons in a long time. We'll use this slide in one of your next presentations.
Oh, thank you. Add to my credibility. Wonderful.
Here it is on the $50 bill. And here's, what's her name again? See?
Let's give credit. Go back to the $50 bill. We need to give credit because there are a lot of people in the audience. Jonathan Kleck. Jonathan Kleck's mission has been to show on the folding of different currencies, the dollar bill all the way on up, all of the different, what do I want? Not prophecies, but the telegraphing of what's coming. Help me with this.
Decrypting these things. He's the ones that decrypted these intentionally printed images that were put here by Freemasons to show this is kind of a sigil magic kind of a thing where you create an image and then you destroy it ceremonially to destroy the object. And so this is their planned thing. Professor Doom just added to this picture about a week ago, I think, the Cadillac symbol at the bottom there, at the very bottom tip. He was talking about the Cadillac, and I think he zoomed in up on those yellow dots and saw the pentagrams in there also. So,
it was the Baphomet, yeah.
And they projected the Cadillac symbol on Hoover Dam as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But I want to just say, thank you, Jonathan. Anybody who knows him, or if he's watching or hears or watches this, Jonathan Kleck has done a great job in this arena, and I really want to commend him for having a very unique gift that's been given to him by God to recognize these things, decipher these things, and be passionate about sticking to his mission, because he has sacrificed a lot to get the word out. And I think he's right on the money in probably everything that I've watched in terms of his videos. I think he's right on the money. And I don't mean that as a pun. Sorry, it is a pun. But the guy really does have a gift from God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he helped wake up a lot of people to get to looking at these things, and so he definitely deserves a lot of credit for helping a lot of people get awake to what's going on.
Most definitely.
This is just a depiction of, Madonna, and look at how it matches the Hoover Dam. We looked at her earlier, and here's the cube with the angels sitting on each side. There's a lot of Freemason symbols around this Hoover Dam, and the zodiac is around it, and it's ran on electromagnetic energy. And this guy, he looks like Shu holding up the boat of Ra, and
Yep.
and then he has like lightning bolts coming down over his head here with a doorway behind his head.
You said it. Hoover is electromagnetic energy. It is generating electricity from water, right? We talked about water.
Yeah.
Today we talk about electricity. We talk about magnetism, electromagnetic energy. This is hydroelectric power. I mean, yeah, there's reasons for generating electrical power. It helps us with our standard of living. But it all ties back into the ritual as well.
Mm-hmm.
I hope people understand that we're talking about a lot of rituals here that tie in directly to physics and science. And we have said every time, you cannot separate the physical world from the spiritual world. You cannot separate the rituals from the physics. The physics that we see today
There we go. I cut out for a minute. I don't know why.
It's all right. Who do we have here? We got
Anthony.
Heidi. Got Kris and Heidi.
I think Anthony cut out too.
Where is Anthony? Is he gone?
I think he locked up, and he's. I think he must have. Let's see. How many photos did you have left on this? Do you want to hold off on them, or do you want to go ahead and present them real quick?
We can. I just a few left. I was just going to show this was Shu, and he also represents He, which is the god of the earth, and he's holding up the Milky Way, and you see the birthing of the sun, and I just had a few more left. Me and Anthony were going to talk about the spiral galaxy and the Norway spiral.
He might pop back on here in a second. I just saw him drop.
Yeah, we were going to talk about the Norway spiral and how they're made, and we know that Obama got his Peace Award when the spiral came up in the air.
Huh.
Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting too. This little thing. You see how it has two pillars here? One on each. It's kind of, you got to see it sideways to see it. Looks like how Madonna's standing on these two pillars things.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's in the center here. It's all gold in these rooms here, all gold. But we're going to have to do a Bible study online, and we'll talk about what these words mean. This is Moses' father-in-law, who came from Esau, and his name is Yether. It means ark, and it's tied to the word green. And I just thought that was interesting. I just wanted to show that. And then the last thing is Matthew 22:32. God is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. He is the God of the living, because we were talking all day today about the gods of the dead and the Egyptians, and these are God, and they want to bring up a God of the dead from the abyss, but God, the true God, is not a God of the dead. He is a God of the living, and we are the living, and we are his temple. And so I just wanted to point that out, at the end of the show. And we really enjoyed having Anthony back, and for all of his input and knowledge on things. And Heidi had some really good stuff on that shaft, and we'll have to elaborate more on that too sometime
Absolutely.
on one of our next shows.
Yeah, and if anybody has any prayer requests, you can always leave those online with us. We'll pray for you, and because that's our main interest. And there's Anthony. He's back. He's back here, and we'll see if he'll. There he is.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Anthony, I had these Norway spirals before the end here. See?
Okay. Oh, very good. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, you know what those are?
Plasma.
Yep. So that's all electromagnetic energy. Those are essentially Berkland currents, and
Yeah.
you're seeing protons from the sun that are accelerated. They're passing through the magnets of the Earth, the toroidal fields, then through the magnetosphere, and you're seeing plasma discharge. That green color is a plasma discharge as those protons move through a magnetic field. And they form into that spiral because essentially you have the Earth is rotating, and it does that, but also just the natural currents, the eddy currents, much like water. When those protons move through the magnetic lines of force, the fields, they create eddy currents, and that can cause a spiral effect. And when we see, if we're here, when we see CERN connect to the moon and then to Saturn using Berkland currents, it'll be in the form of a twisted helix. This is a slice that you're looking at of a Berkland current twisted helix plasma conduit that will reconnect between the Earth and the moon, and then from the moon to Saturn. And so this is a slice of a plasma conduit, a cross-section. That's what a spiral is.
Wow.
Hey, can you give us a quick update to what we need to be looking for June as far as the CERN stuff coming up? I know we'll have more shows, but what should we be looking for with CERN and what you're observing?
Well, outwardly on the planet, certainly more and more intense earthquakes and volcanic activity. There's an obvious direct correlation between the activities of CERN, specifically the magnets, and then the magnetic forces that are generated by the particles accelerated, and then the collisions that occur. So certainly not just an uptick, but I think there's going to be some significant increase in volcanic and earthquake activity. I think that where those locations will be much like we talked about today. Kris, you're great showing the crossing of the telluric currents and those nodes, those concentrations of those currents. Those will be indicators, I think, of where earthquakes will take place, will be those crossings of the telluric currents and the gravimetric waves. And if they cross in areas that tectonically are already very weak and sensitive, then it adds up to an earthquake and a volcano, and or a volcano. Off the coast of Oregon here, where I live in Portland, we have the axial volcanic underwater, subsea or surface of the ocean volcano that has been bubbling up and erupting, not in a massive way, but we had just 2 days ago, within 24 hours, we had 7 earthquakes of 4.0 and 5.4 magnitude occurring in a 24-hour period, 7 earthquakes.
Wow.
Scientists have said that the seabed, the floor of the sea, has dropped 8 feet. And
What?
and that indicates that the magma chamber below the seabed, below the seafloor, is collapsing, which is indicative of an eruption coming. They say that about, I think it was, I'm not sure exactly, but I think it was about every 7 years, this particular volcano has, in very small fashion, has erupted. In other words, it's produced a little bit of magma out into the ocean itself. But they can't account for the shortening of that frequency. It is erupting sooner than they expected, and with a lot more activity and force than they expected. They were supposed to be sending a ship out perhaps this month to go out and do some local measurements of the activity, but they think it may be as long as August, as late as August, before they're actually able to get a ship to go out there. But they're hoping to get one out there very soon. This is 300 miles off the coast of Oregon. It is so close that there would be virtually no warning of a tsunami. If there is a 7.0 or greater earthquake resulting from the eruption of the axial mount, as this volcano is called, the tsunami that will hit the Oregon coast will be large. It won't be like if the Juan de Fuca plate triggers, but it certainly will be enough to wipe out the coastal towns like Cannon Beach and Manzanita, Astoria. All of those areas right there will certainly be inundated and probably virtually wiped off the beach by a tsunami if this axial mount triggers. I believe that the axial mount is a precursor to the slipping, the triggering of the Juan de Fuca plate, which is a conjunction. There's actually 3 plates that come together there. If that does let go, then we will see all along the entire coast, western coast of the United States, a massive tsunami. And because, again, it's so close to the coastline, there will be virtually no ability to warn anyone along the coast. So I'm watching that along with CERN with a lot of care.
Don't you think that people, scientists not affiliated with CERN, have said, hey guys, could you hold off on your 13, TeV, because we're having a lot of earthquake issues right now, and if you guys do this, it might add to it?
Certainly, I'm sure that there are private conversations and concerns that are going on, but there's no stopping in the world of science, in the annals and the hallways of science. There's no way to stop what they're doing at CERN. There's too much behind it. So yeah, seismologists can put out the word and be cautionary, but they don't have the ability to influence anything at CERN.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all your input today. I appreciate what Kris put together. A real big show here for us with a lot of great visuals, a lot of great input. Heidi, Anthony, super show. We'll pick up from here next week. Yeah, it's amazing where CERN during the month of June, what we're going to see as far as, Dutch Sense has been on. Almost all his predictions have been on so far with the earthquakes, and what Anthony's talking about, that area too. And we just saw this morning, I believe, the Utah dormant volcanoes are coming awake. So there's just some serious stuff going down. And with when are the wet particles getting collided?
Well, they started on the 3rd, local time to Geneva, to CERN. They started on the 3rd. They had 6 bunches, as they call them. Each bunch contains 1 billion protons. So they had in each beam 6 bunches per beam that were collided by crossing the beams within the detectors. They have all 4 detectors taking collisions now. Each day they will continue to increase until Saturday. They will have 2,080 bunches per beam colliding with one another. Remember, 2,080 bunches, each bunch comprised of 1 billion protons. Each proton individually, when it collides with another proton, each singular collision generates 13 TeV. And I just put a video out on my YouTube channel last evening on Anthony Patch, is my channel name, where I explain this in a very simplistic way, showing a little bit of the math that we're talking about. Scientists will say that a or an electron volt is equivalent to the beating of a mosquito's wings. Okay, well that's all well and good, but you start multiplying and you begin to realize the amount of energy that is being created here. We're talking about billions and billions. I sound like Carl Sagan talking about stars. We're talking about billions of protons colliding. And when they do, they each generate 13 tera electron volts. So multiply that by billions, you have a factor of tremendous amounts of electricity. But more importantly than electricity are the lines of magnetic force, the amount of electromagnetic energy that is being produced. This is what they're not talking about. They are not talking about the amount of magnetic force that is being created by these collisions. So let me back up a little bit. Let me give you a stair-step process. You have lines of magnetic force that are generated by the superconducting magnets that confine these beams into their streams and also accelerate them, okay? That's one source of magnetic energy. Another source of magnetic energy that's compounded to the magnets is the magnetic force generated by the particles being accelerated. Anytime you accelerate particles through a current, through an electrical current, you generate magnetic energy. So picture a 27-kilometer ring of particles moving at near the speed of light, and you have billions of these particles all being accelerated. They are just the acceleration alone, just the movement of the particles alone are generating huge quantities of magnetic energy on top of the magnetic energy that's generated by the electromagnets, the superconducting electromagnets. Now, here's your third one. We're going to add to this in the form of tera electron volts. That also is generating magnetic energy. You have a three-stage process of generating electromagnetism. Where's all this going? It's going to the forming of toroidal fields, the torus, the shape of the donut. And that donut, as we've seen in these ancient drawings, the depictions from thunderbolts, the ancient drawings that Kris has presented from ancient times, which shows the torus, the donut, positioned between the Earth and the Moon. This is really critical for people to understand. These guys are generating electromagnetic lines of force in the shape of a donut, which is a torus, which will be projected and established between the Earth and the Moon. Through the hole of the donut, as we've seen today in Kris's pictures, you have Berkland currents passing through the hole of the donut. And those currents will then move from the moon acting as a hub, as a nexus, as a transmitter, a relay station, to align with the southern pole of Saturn. Once they align to the southern pole of Saturn, they unlock the prison and they allow the entities trapped within to travel back along that conduit to the Earth and to the abyss, thus opening through the key, which is Cern, opening the abyss and achieving their agenda.
And we didn't even talk about the strangelets generated that'll fall to the center of the planet and help to destabilize the core, right, and all that. So, geez, it's insane. There's no way of saying it's insane. It's just insane to do that to where you place you live. Did anybody else want to add to it? And we'll wrap up at this point.
Well, I always like when Kris, and maybe Heidi wants to do this, but I always like when Heidi brings up Scripture and brings it to a close with a word from the Lord.
Heidi?
Or Kris?
You go ahead, Heidi.
I was just thinking, this is just an example of man trying to play God. And there's only one God. We are his creation. We are not God. We can never be God. However, we can be like him, because when he pours out his Holy Spirit, he fills us with his presence and his spirit, and we can have the ability to become like him. But we can never be God, and that is the big crux of the issue, is man trying to be God, and man will never be able to be God. There's always some chink in the armor, man's going to fail. And these guys building CERN, and they're going to fail. They don't think they are, but they're going to fail. And Jesus is going to be triumphant, and he's going to destroy their works, because they are just never going to be able to make their Tower of Babel again. And that's pretty much it to me. You can't play God and not, it's like opening Pandora's box and not expect to get, bit.
We're not here propagating fear. We're not fear mongers. We're not sensationalists. Right, Kris?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, because Jesus is a powerful God. He is the only begotten Son, the only begotten Son of God. And God is beyond the universe. He's beyond all of these planets and all of these things that these fallen angels are doing. And that's why we're here, because we want to, look into things, research things that's been hidden from the world, like plasma and the real science and all the things that we don't learn in school. And we're just trying to open things up. That's why we have Anthony here to help us with the hard questions and about CERN. But, we can see what they're doing. They're trying to recreate the Big Bang and bring in their God. They want to do these things. And this is in the book of Revelation, and it talks about the third temple, and it talks about what they're doing. And this has everything to do with the third temple and bringing in the Antichrist. And so these things will be played out. But the good news is that Jesus already conquered all of this. He already conquered it with his blood. He came down to this world in the flesh, and he died on the cross for us, and he rose again, and he sent his Holy Spirit to us. And that is a powerful thing in itself, because we have God's Holy Spirit, and we are his children. And all of us, me, Anthony, Tim, and Heidi, we all have the Holy Spirit. And that's why we connect together. That's why God put us together in these times. And that's why we're here today, for a purpose. And I think that everybody has a purpose. And I think God has a plan for everyone. And so, whatever anybody's going through in life, God is more powerful than any of it. And in these end times, he is going to protect us, and we are his covenant. So that's all I got to say. We're in these end times, and God's dealing with everybody's heart. And everybody has got to deal with where they want their soul to go at some point.
It's a choice. And CERN represents the choice. It's right in our face, and you can choose evil, or you can choose Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
Amen. Amen. Well, I'm just saying that, we're so privileged to know Anthony and have the information about CERN and know the CERN timetable, where the rest of the world really isn't up on this. And we have a glimpse of stuff going on that the rest of the world isn't clued into. And, that's why we're watchmen on the wall, and we're shouting and making noise, because they're working on a timetable and destructive forces that we're going to see in the very near future here. And we're already seeing them, but we're trying to wake up as many people as we can. So I just want to say that hopefully we get to do many more shows to get more people awake, and that's our objective, and that's what Anthony's been doing with his books and going on the talk shows and stuff like that, trying to get out the word to the scientific community that these guys are, messing with things that they shouldn't be messing with. And we know that. And so everybody did a great job today. I appreciate everybody for watching. This is the end of the show, and we'll just say goodbye, and we'll come back and fill you in as things start happening. So thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Goodbye. Don't forget to leave your prayer requests. God bless.
God bless.